Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for viewing this Virtual Parent College 101. We do these events 3 times a year. We do one in the fall semester, one in the spring semester, and one in the summer, because we know that the college search process can be very, very confusing. As a parent myself, I know it was difficult, and I work in higher education, just trying to navigate all of the questions that you have for your students, whether they be a freshman in high school, what they can do to prepare, whether they be a senior getting ready to go off to college. There's a lot of information. And so that's what these events are designed to help with, is to help assist you through the process. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to introduce ourselves. We've got some really dynamic guest speakers that we're excited about having on here. They're going to share their experiences a little bit. One of our counselors is going to talk about what to do while they're still in high school, what they should be thinking about for high school courses. And, you know, if they're having trouble picking a major, or even if they have a major picked out, what to think about. If they are thinking about transferring on to a university after IVCC, what are the considerations that they can start thinking about now, and that you can start thinking about with them. And then, you know, ultimately back to the college search process. What does it mean to find the right fit? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Once they do know where they want to attend, what that application process is like. And then, of course, the question that most people are concerned about is, how do we pay for college? You know, what does that look like? So we'll talk a little bit about that. Once then they decide where they want to enroll, we're going to talk about what the next steps are. And then when they're at their college of choice, hopefully it's IVCC, otherwise wherever they attend, what are the resources that they can take advantage of? And then we'll have some time at the end for questions. So first things first, I'd like to introduce some of the folks that you'll be hearing from today. So Gracelyn, take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Gracelyn Quessy. I'm the Student Recruitment Specialist here at IVCC. I'm excited to help you out in any way we can to take the next steps after high school or to come back to school, whether that be directly to us or somewhere else. We just want you to go continue your educational career in whatever way you'd like to.
Renee. Oh, you're on mute, Renee.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm one of the counselors here at IVCC, and I will be here to answer questions about the transfer process, the careers, certificates, degrees that we have here on hand. So now I'm going to mute myself again.
Thank you. And I'm Ezrat Loveland. I serve as the Assistant Director for Admissions, Records, and Transfer Services. And I'll be talking a little bit about just finding the right fit. So I think a big important piece to all of this is really hearing from a student and also a parent that had gone through the process. So up next, we have Matt Klein, who is a current IVCC student, sharing kind of his perspective on choosing a college and why IVCC.
Thank you, Ezrat. As Ezrat said, I'm Matthew, and I have a really interesting story to share today from a student perspective. So in this May, I will be graduating from IVCC, but to be honest, if you would have asked me that a few years ago, I probably would have not have said that. When I was a senior in high school, I'm sure like many of you guys are now, I was searching around for schools, and and my family and I, we went and visited all these other schools and stuff. And I always tell this story, and it's very ironic. I literally live 2 minutes away from IVCC. Like if they're both green lights, I can get there in maybe 2 minutes. So we looked at all these other schools, but we didn't even look at IVCC. And my dad went there and stuff, and he really wanted me to look at it. And I was just like, I don't know, IVCC, it's right here and stuff, and basically we toured all these other schools, did all this other stuff, and I still wasn't sure about where I wanted to go. I was just a little unsure about it, and nothing felt right at the time. And it's a very big decision. So we finally went out to IVCC, last but certainly not least, as you can see. And I couldn't be more glad that I ended up there, that I am today. At IVCC, I've been involved in so many great organizations. From a student perspective, there's so many things, whether you're involved in chemistry, not me, but there's a club for that. Whether you're involved in the newspaper, that's been a lot of fun. Whether you're involved with basically whatever it is, IVCC has something to offer you. I've also had a unique experience, and this is something that I don't think every school offers, is you can be a part of a board. So at IVCC, it's grateful that the board actually has a student trustee, and I've gratefully been able to be that. It's been really cool. I've been on the board this past year. I've gotten to see how the organization works from that perspective. And at the same time, I've been representing the students. So it's been a lot of fun. And it's just been a really unique experience, while at the same time being able to stay here, being able to stay in this community, stay local. And I've really enjoyed it, to be honest. Again, they're not paying me to say this, nothing like that. But I just really have enjoyed the school. And on top of all this, of course, I mean, you're going to go to all these other schools and they're going to talk about how, yeah, they have all these resources and stuff like that, and student services and all that great stuff. Well, I can assure you that IVCC has the same services, if not better, because you're getting more individualized attention. It's more one-on-one. And that's something that's really important to me as a student. Is there anything else? Any questions?
No, Matt, I think you did a great job covering it. So we appreciate your time and sharing your perspective. And next we have Quentin and Jennifer Scary.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Scary, and I am the mother of Shay, who is a 2017 graduate of LaSalle Peru Township High School, attended IVCC for 2 years, graduated, and is currently finishing up her junior year at the University of Illinois.
So Jennifer, could you tell us just a little bit about Shay's story? So you mentioned where she attended high school, but what was the college search process like for Shay from both her perspective and yours?
Sure. Well, as a parent, we want our child to be happy. We want them to go someplace where they will grow, excel, succeed. And, at the same time, you want to be realistic as to, knowing your child, what they can handle. There's always the cost factor of college that is, an issue for many families. So in our experience, we started the search process with an open mind. And that is, Shay wasn't sure what she really wanted to do. I laugh and I joke and I say she likes us. So she openly admitted she wasn't anxious to leave home. And like many, I think, high school seniors are ready to try something new, but she wasn't ruling that out either. So we approached the process where we did several college visits. Shay knew whether she attended IVCC or graduated and then went on, she knew she wanted to be within a 2-3 hour drive of home. So most of our visits were within the state of Illinois or neighboring states. But throughout that process, she saw a little bit of everything. We visited large colleges like the University of Iowa and the University of Illinois. We attended open houses at IVCC, and which is obviously a place very near and dear to me since I am an employee there. And we also visited some small colleges such as Bradley University and Marquette. And with that, she was able to see a range of everything. Throughout this process, even though I am an employee of the college, and I'm a firm believer that IVCC is a great start because I see daily all of the success stories that come out of the college, I didn't want to tell my child that's where she was going. I wanted her to arrive upon that decision by herself. And like I started with, I wanted her to be in a place where she was going to be happy and do well. So, from my perspective, that was my approach. All along, I felt that IVCC was a good fit for her. But the other part of me thought that, she worked hard during high school. She had excellent grades. She was accepted into every university she wanted to go to. If she really wanted to take that jump and move forward, we were willing to allow her to do that. From Shay's perspective, as I mentioned, she wasn't sure what she wanted to do. I think personally, she thought she could have been happy anywhere because she adapts pretty easy to new situations, so then we decided to look at the cost factor. And, parents I know are scared by the cost of college. It's a bit daunting, but kids really have no perception of the cost of college. And in the case of if you're going to have a student loan, how long it really takes to pay that off. So we did have that conversation. And in our situation, Shay was pursuing a degree in an area that required a master's degree, speech and language pathology. So we knew, right up front that she was looking at 6 years of college. And I think at that point, once we had that, we tied the financial situation to it and said, okay, we know we're willing to support you and we can get you through 4 years of college. It made IVCC and the affordability of it that much more important, because she could attend IVCC at a very reasonable cost, transfer to the University of Illinois where she is today, and we could assist her with that tuition. Plus we know she has 2 years left. So her attending IVCC was just allowing us to extend our dollar, to help her with her master's program.
So what, at this point, Jennifer, you mentioned you were kind of the ideal parent as I see it. You let her find out the information for herself. You helped her when she needed help. You were there and supportive of her. I'm curious, what would Shay say at this point? So she's transferred on to a 4-year. What do you think Shay would say her perceptions of the whole college search process were? Was it stressful? Was it, just in general, what would she have to say?
Yeah, I don't think she felt that the process was stressful. I think she went into it with an open mind as well. And I think she felt, because she didn't have a real strong conviction that she wanted to be away or she wanted to stay home, I think she felt like she could adapt to any situation. And sometimes, even though I say Shay's very adaptable, the initial transition is a bit slow and she needs to feel secure. So it could take a week, a month, for her to feel good in an environment. And I think for her, and she would tell you this now, that starting at IVCC was a great choice for her. It allowed her to transition out of high school, get a real good, realistic idea of the rigor of college. She was able to meet her instructors who she knows, by name and would recognize today. She enjoyed the small class sizes, that she experienced. And so for her, she would say IVCC was a great start. And I always tell this story. Within her first week or two at the University of Illinois, of course, we're talking, texting several times a day. And she did transition very well. And she did say this was so much easier coming out of IVCC than it would have been coming out of LP, only because, I knew what to expect. I knew how college classes were structured. And she said it just made the whole transition process easy. It was like there wasn't even a transition. She just went and she was good and she jumped right in. And so, for her, she would definitely say IVCC is a great place to start. It prepared her. She feels, that the rigor to the classes she's experiencing now is very similar. So we feel really good in that regard.
Sure. So finally, I'd like to ask you, Jen, and then I'd like to hear from Matt too. I want him to chime in. So Jen, first, what advice would you give to parents who are going through this process now?
Sure. Well, I think you really have to know, and understand your child and what's going to make them happy. And you have to let them explore their options and put it out there on the table. Different scenarios that are going to exist, based on your choices. Because ultimately, like I said, you want your child to be happy and succeed in whatever they're doing. And I think by having those candid conversations and even opening up the conversation, in regards to cost and, how affordable, IVCC is, and you can still, get a great education, even though it's a little closer to home. Those conversations are very important and it helps them understand. I think we as parents assume kids, think like us and they know the value of a dollar and, in their small world and what they're dealing with, they may, but when you open it and look at the big scope of things and, the cost of education and student loans and interest and what type of job salary you have to earn to pay that off in X number of years, I think it helps them understand not only, that you have to look at the academic side and the social side, but also the financial side to make your decision.
Great.
Yeah, Jen, I completely agree with that. And kind of going off what you said, yeah, it doesn't hurt to have that conversation. And sometimes, yeah, you want the child to be able to do what they want to do and stuff. But sometimes you do have to be upfront about like bringing up those conversations about cost and things like that. Because I know for a fact, the first thing that when I was thinking about, oh, which school am I going to go to and stuff, it wasn't the cost. It was, all right, well, what's the campus life like? What's that? And at the end of the day, sometimes those other factors, like you said, the cost and things like that, those outweigh those when you really think about it. But it is good to have those conversations. And I know my parents did, and I'm glad they did. So I think it's definitely a good idea.
Cool. Well, thank you guys both so much for sharing your story. It's super helpful, like Azarette said, to hear from both the student and the parent perspective. So thanks for taking the time out of your day.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we are lucky to have a counselor with us to share a little bit more about, okay, what should I be doing as, as a high school student or as a parent, and what does it all mean when, I'm offered a dual credit course and all of that. So with that, we have RENEE PRINE with us.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. And I know this is a big decision for you and your family and your kids. And so just know that whether you come to IVCC or you decide to go elsewhere or start with us with one course in high school, you're always welcome to contact IVCC, and we can answer as many questions as we can for you. We're happy to discuss options with you, whether it be transfer, whether you're interested in a degree or a certificate that we offer here on our campus. There's lots of choices at IVCC, and we're happy to provide those to you. One of the big ones is, what do you want to come to school for? And a lot of that has to do with whether or not you are wanting to go to school for a certificate and maybe turn that into further schooling and get a degree. And a lot of students decide to come in right away and say, I know I want to be this person when I grow up and I want to have this job, and how do I get there? Show me the path. And so we help plan that out for students as well. So I'll have Azarette hit the next slide for me. And I think that one is going to talk about high school courses. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about those high school courses. So if you do have a freshman, sophomore, junior, even a senior that's in high school right now, the high school courses that matter, well, they all have to meet their certain curriculum requirements. They have to have the 4 years of English, and they have to have the 3 years of mathematics, and they have to have at least 2 semesters of foreign language, so on and so forth. But when it comes to college, and when it comes to making their lives a little bit easier when it means coming to college, I would highly suggest that they take the additional courses if given the opportunity. And what I mean by that is, if they're offered 4 years of foreign language, go through with that. Many of these schools that have the bachelor's degree, if they want to transfer after IVCC, require at least 4 years of a high school foreign language, or they'd end up taking 2 years at college. So if you can cover that base by doing those courses at the high school, one more thing that you have checked off of your list: math. Math is another big one. We find that students who don't complete that senior year of mathematics sometimes struggle because they've been out of math for at least 12 months from the last time that they took a math course to the time that they enroll in college. So whether or not that's taking an additional statistics course or another algebra course, but if they participate in taking an additional year of mathematics, that will help them not only place higher when coming into college, but it may waive some placement tests for them as well, depending on their overall GPA, so on and so forth. So continuing in that math and not having a break is really important. However, if your senior did have a break, getting them in and taking a placement test maybe at the end of their junior year would be my suggestion, because then they're coming right off of that placement test and they're a little bit fresher on math. If they know they're not going to take a senior math, they could test and get their test score, and that's good for 2 years if you're coming to IV. If you're going directly on to a bachelor's degree at a 4-year school, you'd want to look up their placement information. So let's talk a little bit about college and high school. I really have a thing that I talk with parents about. You know your student better than anyone. Have a conversation with them. Are they ready for college courses while still in high school? Do they have that mentality of, I want to get this done? Do they have really good organizational skills? Are they on top of their schoolwork? Are they bored with the schoolwork that they have right now? Would they be better off being challenged by some of those high school courses? You know, if you can answer yes to a lot of those questions, your student may be ready for some college courses in high school. They may be ready for a dual credit or a dual enrollment, depending on what your high school offers. Even sometimes AP credit. AP credit is a lot of things that high schools are offering now, where you would sign up for that particular AP class. They would take a test at the end of the class and be awarded college credit based on the score of that test. So there's a lot of different options in high school, but you know your high schooler the best. Have that conversation. Give us a call. I just got off of a meeting with a parent and a daughter, and the daughter reached out, which was great, and said, I'm really interested in getting my associate's degree while I'm still in high school. Is that possible? We just had a Zoom meeting, and the parent sat in, and we went over all the nuances of it and what in the end she wanted to do as a major and what would be best for her. And in the end, it came down to the fact of, take as many dual credit courses as you can get, take as many gen ed courses as you can get, and then you can come to IV and we'll supplement what you're missing and couldn't get at the high school level, in order to maybe make it a little bit easier on you when you come here for the tougher calculus and chemistry and math course and science classes. So, you know, we're working with that student's high school counselor, working with a college counselor and the family to make sure that we have that best fit for them. Let's talk a little bit about academic programs offered at IVCC. So you heard me talk about transferring. So students can come to IVCC and complete some of their general education courses. The most important thing is that we're getting you not only the courses that you need in order to transfer, but we're also getting you those courses what you need in order to be eligible to be admitted into your major. So we would work with you on determining what those courses may be. Let's say you don't want to transfer. Let's say you're bound to the area. Let's say that you aren't really sure what you want to do, but you have a inkling and you like to work with your hands and you like to tinker with things, but you're not sure if you want to do something maybe in electrical or computers or nursing. All of those are very hands-on careers. We do have a lot of programs that you can work through to earn a certificate. You can get your feet wet, as I like to say, by earning that certificate. And then you can move on into an associate's degree. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to use automotive maybe as an example here. So our automotive program, we have a basic certificate. Students can come in and within 1 year, a fall, a spring, and a summer, can earn a basic automotive technology certificate. That would give them the skills to go out and get an entry-level position, maybe at an oil change company or at a dealership doing oil changes, so on and so forth. But then they get the taste of it and they really like it. So they are like, I want to go on. So they might consider, well, maybe I should go on and get that degree. So the courses that they took in that first year of that certificate program fall right into place in that fall, spring, and summer semester that you see here on the left-hand side with the automotive courses. They're the exact same thing that were just in that previous certificate. What you'll see added here are some general education courses. You'll see a written communications course. You'll see a wellness. You'll see a oral communications course, a speech, an elective. And then what happens is they go on to the next year. And in that fall, they would complete the second year of automotive courses and a math class. And then that spring semester, more automotive courses and a general education psychology class. They would come out of this then with, our automotive actually has 5 total certificates that you can earn along the way, including a basic, advanced, they have a brakes, an engine, and a drivability course. And then you can get your degree as well. That will open the more doors for you as far as service jobs and as far as management positions. So you can build on that. Believe it or not, you can even take this degree and participate in a 3+1 program that we have with Northern Illinois University and turn this into a bachelor's degree. So there's a lot of options here for you at IVCC. So we talked a little bit about the transfer. A lot of times we hear students say, I'm coming to IB to get my generals. And that's something that we hear all the time. And we're like, what do you mean by that? Well, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to come and get my generals and I want to transfer. So we talked to you more in depth about, we can give you your generals, but then let's decide, you know, if you decide later on and maybe your second year, you want to be a business major. If we don't give you those correct courses for you to get into your university or college that you choose to go to after IVCC and incorporate those into your transfer gen eds, you could be at IV or the university a little bit longer, getting those pre-admission requirements that we typically like to incorporate into your transfer gen eds. So you have that seamless transition, just like Shay did that Jennifer was talking about. So let's talk a little bit about the transfer gen eds. Communications, everybody takes 3 courses in communications: English composition 1, 2, and speech. Everyone takes at least 1 college level math. That math would be determined based on your major. So if you were considering business, you would take a calculus for business in the social sciences class. However, if you were engineering, you'd have a calculus class. If you were a teaching major, you would have a mathematics for teaching course. So again, how we choose those courses for you is determined based on your major in that transfer school. Again, with the life and the physical sciences, every student's required to have at least a minimum of 2 science classes. 1 life science, which is the biologies, 1 physical sciences, the chemistries, the earth science classes, astronomy, things like that. One of those courses must be a lab course. So get ready, they're gonna have some more lab courses. Then we have the humanities and the fine arts. The humanities and the fine arts, why do I have to take those courses? Well, in a bachelor's degree, you have a well-rounded layout of coursework, and they want you to have courses from a variety of different areas. So the humanities and the fine arts incorporate things like literature, gender studies, philosophy, foreign language. The fine arts would be art history, music history, theater appreciation, film appreciation. Those aren't acting and playing an instrument and so on and so forth. Those are the appreciation courses. Then you have your social sciences. Your social sciences could be anthropology, economics, geography, political science, psychology, sociology, those types of courses. You'll take a smattering of courses from those classes as well. And then we have your health and wellness requirement. So IVCC believes in a well-rounded individual. So health and wellness is important. And it also helps with your studies, believe it or not. Exercising and helps keep you focused and fresh. So that's a little bit about the gen eds. And then what we do is round out those gen eds with some of your courses that you may need for your major. That aren't included in the gen ed. So if you're a business, you'd have accounting courses, you may have a computer course, you may have a business law course, and those would add to those credit hours and get you ready for transfer. So if there's any questions that you've got, counselors are always available to help. And I think that our numbers and emails will be available later, and they're always available on the website. So thanks guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Renee. Next, we have Graceland kind of sharing why even think summer classes and what those options look like.
Hi, everyone. So something I'm very passionate about is summer courses, especially summer online courses. They're a great way to stay productive throughout your time, not just at IVCC, but continuing on if you want to transfer or anything. We're going to go over really quick just what our sessions are looking like this summer. So we've transitioned to fully online for our session A, which actually has some benefits, which I'll go through later. But we have 2 sessions, May 18th, one is one start date, and June 10th is the other start date. They both run for 8 weeks over the summer. Session A, like I mentioned, is completely online, which is a great benefit to incoming students from high school, because that's a date that session A is something that they might not usually be able to participate in because it would still overlap with their summer, with their senior year course schedule. So that's another opportunity to just do it completely online, get some classes knocked out before you really dive into the fall semester, whether it be starting at IVCC or at a 4-year or anything. And we have transitioned online this summer just due to align with the guidance of the Illinois Community College Board in regards to what's going on with COVID-19 and everything. Let's see. It's very flexible, like you said, for high school students and for anyone, especially for online classes. All you need is an internet connection, something that is thinking far off to the future for those of you who are going to a 4-year or who are even after that looking at professional school like medical school, law school, or graduate school. It saves time and money. And that time, if you front load your classes now and start and take a class here or there over the summer, it'll open up space towards the end of your college career in order for you to do those interviews and be more flexible for times when you might be bogged down with applications for medical school or law school or traveling for interviews or taking the MCAT or the LSAT. Second is cost. One of the comparisons we have with one of the 4-year universities in our system is one of their classes is Psych 100 is $1,600 for one class. And you can take the same class that articulates over to that same general psychology class for about $400 here at IVCC. And so that's a vast cost savings. And you can save that, once again, for those applications or for studying abroad or anything. It translates over as the same course. It articulates over that. So if it gets rid of a certain requirement or meets a requirement at the institution you're transferring to, it will still do that, even if you took it at IVCC. And that's an option too for even if you've already gone off to a 4-year or you didn't start at IVCC, you can always come back over the summer if you're coming home and take the classes at IVCC. I'm very passionate about it because, once again, cost savings and student debt. I was fortunate enough to be able to take some summer school classes. I went straight to a 4-year, but over the summers I took some classes, was able to graduate from UCLA early with major, 2 minors, and in the honors program, even though I'd only taken 2 classes over the summer. And so those are opportunities that you definitely are going to want to look at in terms of financially and just the time to accelerate and get to your career sooner rather than later. Let's see. And I know, Renee, was there anything I missed in terms of summer online?
No, I think you did a great job. I just want to remind parents as well, if you're interested in taking an online class, don't be nervous about it. We have an orientation that we require of all new students that are interested in taking an online class that help prepare you for that online environment. And that's that free CSP 0002 course. And it's an introduction to online distance learning. So if you or your student are nervous about taking an online class, it's a great way to start off, and it is free.
Thank you, Gracelyn. So next, we want to talk a little bit about finding the right fit, right? And so it's important to be thinking about, okay, what are these campuses like? So visiting is a very important piece to all of this. What I tell students and I even tell parents is that we are in the line of work where we're going to do whatever it takes to really get you on campus and be interested in our institution. So why not take that road trip and visit all these different campuses? And the time is really starting sophomore year, I think. That gives you a longer time just to see what's out there. I think it's important to step on foot on campus so that you can really feel and sense the culture. I always tell students to check out the student union or student life center, because if you can just sense, could I see myself sitting there with those students? Could I see myself hanging out with them? I think that gives you a really good sense of, okay, this might be a place where I'd like to spend the next couple of years, whether it's, after IVCC or starting there as a freshman, or even graduate school. So again, visiting is very important. You also want to think about, the resources that are available, thinking about proximity from home. like Jennifer mentioned, Shay knew that she wanted to be between 2 to 3 hours away from home. And I think that's really important to consider and think about. What I tell students too, when you're going through this process, you want to start contacting the people in the departments of the major that you may be wanting to pursue. And with that, it's just a matter of contacting the admissions office or even the department itself and asking, I'm planning to go to campus this date and time. Would you have an opportunity or some time to meet with me? Just give me a little bit more insight of what, why your institution or department's different from XYZ institution. And I think that's really telling, because then you can see, are they going to make the time for you? Are they going to kind of roll out the red carpet? And I know I can say with great faith that we'll do that for our students here at IVCC. It's so wonderful that we even get our deans to just pop out of their office and say, hey, I hear that you're interested in biology. Let's go down and check out the cadaver lab. So it's situations like that where you can kind of get a sense of what the culture is like, what are the people like, and that's really important. The other piece that I want to mention, some institutions offer this. At IVCC, we do. We have a program called Student Shadow Program, where you connect with us, and if there's a specific course that might fit your major or even an interest, we're going to have you sit in that classroom so you can really get a taste of what are the instructors like, what is the delivery method like. And I'm always proud of sharing that, because quite honestly, students get out of that class and they're thinking, okay, I kind of have a better idea of what the expectation is in a college course, but I can also tell that the instructor really cares. And so, they might not have that visible on their websites for all institutions, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And I think it's very important. Again, if you're going to invest quite a bit of dollars, it's important to really do the research and not just the website, because I'll tell you, we've got some creative people behind those websites to make sure that anything that is listed or shown is to really buy your interest. So visit. The next big piece that I want to share is the application process. So we typically tell our students that are seniors at this time to apply in the fall. That's just a safe time to be able to get a lot of that stuff sorted. It's an important thing to be a part of the communication process within the admission cycle. I know many students want to know what the next step is beyond the application, so the earlier the better. At IVCC, we encouraged in September to just get your application in so that, again, you know what the next step really is. And then you don't have to, oh, have I done that? Do I need to do this? So that's a big piece. The other thing to also consider is, what is the cost for the application? So we see that a lot of students end up spending about $40 to $60 per application per institution that they apply. I'm happy to say that we are free. Our application is completely free, and it takes less than like 3 minutes or so to complete it. You'll see that there's a couple of different ways that you can apply to some of the different four-year universities. So some will do it straight through their website. There's other platforms that they can go ahead and apply through. And then you'll see that everyone has different requirements. So at that point of time, they might ask you to upload a personal statement. So be sure to keep an eye out for that, and just to see what you can do to support your student through that process. The other big piece in October is financial aid. And so I like to think about complete your admissions application in September, and then in October, be ready to prepare the financial aid FAFSA application. And what that also looks like is to be able to include all the codes that your student is applying for. It makes it easier. And we tell students, even if we're Plan Z or C, include us in the financial aid process. Many times students realize, I visited these schools, and I think the best bet for me at this point, considering maybe graduate school, is to attend IVCC. So we always like to be part of the process, and just to be able to support you along the way. And again, enrollment steps are really important to just keep an eye out. A lot of our schools in the state have portals. What we use at IVCC is text messaging, because that's the best way we can reach the student, and email. So it's important to just keep in touch. Even communicating with an admission counselor is really important. And then if students do plan to attend IVCC, we stress the importance of starting a conversation with a transfer counselor. And that is amazing, just because you'll be able to have, be able to ask the questions, not only to your IVCC counselor, but also to the four-year university that you plan to transfer to. And it's just a really nice, seamless conversation that it just puts you at ease. And again, the student and yourself making sure everything will fit as you guys had planned. And there it is again, visit campus. You want to visit campus and make sure what you're seeing online is really true. Next is paying for college. So I'm gonna have Quentin cover that.
All right, excuse me. All right, thank you, Ezra. So first things first, there is no substitute for talking to a financial aid professional. So I can't stress that enough. A lot of our district high schools, all of our district high schools, have somebody on campus that students can talk to about financial aid. We've got ISAC reps who come through the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. It's always good to talk to them. It's always good to talk to somebody at your high school about it. And our financial aid office is always willing to talk with students. So for today, we want to give kind of a broad overview of what that financial aid looks like. So to start with, I think every one of us has probably heard quite often about the student debt crisis that's going on in the United States. And the bottom line is 66% of students who attend public colleges end up with student debt, and the average loan debt is $25,550. That's a substantial amount of money. If your student attends a private college, 75% of students have student loan debt, and the average is $32,000. Like I said, that's a huge amount of money for a student to be saddled with the moment that they graduate, because those payments only give you about 6 months of grace period before you've got to start paying those loans back. So we want parents to be aware. We want students to be aware. We're not trying to tell anybody. As Jennifer Scarry mentioned, really, I think she put it best. If a student has their eye on a specific four-year campus and it's got their major and just everything seems to be clicking for them in that campus, we're not at all trying to dissuade a student from doing so, but we do want students and parents to be informed about student debt and about ways to reduce that. And Graceland talked about it a little bit too, as far as the, taking summer classes is concerned. There's ways that you can knock that figure lower, and really anything you can do to do so is helpful. So what are we looking at as far as financial aid and scholarships are concerned? So, when we talk about financial aid, grants versus loans is kind of the key starting point that we often talk about. So the definition of a grant, the federal definition of a grant, is basically money you don't have to pay back. So if your student is eligible for a federal Pell Grant, that means that's money that the government is going to give them to assist with education. And oftentimes that money is given directly to the university or college where they're enrolled to pay for that tuition. They're not required to pay that back. Again, that's grant money. Student loan money, on the other hand, is money that they do have to pay back. So there's a lot of different types of student loans out there. What I always say is the good loans are the ones that go through the FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the bottom line is those are the good loans. Those are the loans that you want to explore first. If there's all kinds of other loans available out there. There's the Parent Plus loan that's also available through the government. Those should all be last resort. So obviously, grants are good because you don't have to pay that money back, and student loans are, kind of after that. But the way grants and loans are kind of dispersed, the criteria that the federal government uses for that is filling out that free application for federal student aid, filling out that FAFSA. And once you start that FAFSA process, the most important number that you'll get back, it's called the EFC. It's the expected family contribution. And the way the government calculates that number is the guardian, or basically whoever the student is a dependent of. So it's usually the parents, it can be the guardians, it can be relatives, whatever the case is, whoever claims that student as a dependent on their tax returns, that is the person who's going to submit their tax information for that student on the FAFSA. So depending on income level, depending on assets and a lot of other stuff, again, a financial aid professional will be able to talk with you through about that. But using all those numbers in there, those tax returns, everything like that, they're going to calculate an EFC, an expected family contribution. And what essentially the government is saying with that EFC is, here's how much that we can reasonably expect the parents or the guardians to chip in for this student's education. So if you have an expected family contribution of 0, then what that means is your student is going to be eligible for grants. That's money, again, from the government, whether it's federal in the form of Pell Grants or it's state in the form of MAP grants. That's going to be money that they can access and use for education. If you don't qualify for grants, you'll likely qualify for student loans. And again, that's going to be subsidized student loans. They're called the Stafford Student Loan Program, that the government is allowing you to loan that money from them, and they're going to keep the interest rates low. That's really kind of the good versus bad loans speech that I give. Is the bad loans aren't necessarily bad if they're helping you complete your education, but what you need to be mindful of is what that interest rate is going to be and what the terms of repayment are. So once you complete that FAFSA, which is available every year on October 1st for the following academic year, so this coming October 1st will be the FAFSA that you'd complete for the 21-22 academic year. If your student's enrolling somewhere this fall, hopefully you've already completed the FAFSA for this 2021 year. If not, there's still time, you can still do that. Once you submit that FAFSA, you're going to choose which institutions you send it to. So if your student's considering, let's say, Illinois Valley Community College and Iowa State University, you're going to want to say, send the FAFSA to IVCC and Iowa State University. Because once the student submits that FAFSA to those universities, once they essentially apply and say that they're going to possibly attend that, that's when the school is going to send this award letter. And what we've got on the screen now is an example award letter from IVCC. And basically, again, every institution is going to send this out. Every college or university is going to send out this award letter. And really, this is one of the most important documents that you can receive in your college search process, because this is going to tell the student, here's how much money that you're going to get to help pay for college from the government. So you can see on this sample award letter, this is for a fictitious student who qualifies for all of the grants and who qualifies for all of the student loans that are out there. But you can see the amount of money they're going to get to help them pay for college. So that's why the award letter is so important, because you want to see how much money am I going to get in assistance to go to college. And then there's also going to be, okay, how much is it truly going to cost for me to go to college at the institution I'm interested in? So when we start to look at the tuition for some of our state schools, so these are 2018, 2019 figures, so they're just a year out of date. But basically what we can see, this is based on 16 credits. Tuition at the state schools is anywhere from $12,000, and then you've got some private schools on there too. So that's going to be tuition for one full year. What this doesn't include is housing, so essentially room and board. So that's another part of the calculation that you have to put in place. Is it's not just tuition. So IVCC's tuition, we've remained stable actually since 2017. So we haven't raised the cost of tuition in a few years now, which is really, really cool. So to go to IVCC for a student to enroll as a full-time student, 16 credit hours per semester, it's going to be $4,266 for the year. If the student's attending part-time, only 6 credit hours per semester, you're looking at $1,606 for the year. And then books and supplies, so you can reasonably expect to pay about $1,250 for books and supplies for a full year for a student who's attending here full-time. So you add that up and basically you can find you know, it's going to be a little under $6,000 for a student to enroll at IVCC for the full year. So this is an equation, if you could even call it that, that we've kind of put together in admissions to hopefully help students who are going through the process and parents who are going through the process as well to figure out how much is it truly going to cost me. And that's where, when you're shopping around for colleges, when you're looking on the college websites, the way you want to calculate it for yourself is you want to take that cost of tuition, you want to add housing, and then you want to find out, okay, how much money am I going to get for help? So you're going to take tuition and housing minus the amount of financial aid that you're going to receive, which is going to be available based on that award letter, plus any scholarship money that you may receive too, whether that be from the institution. We'll talk about IVCC scholarships in a moment, or whether it be from, you know, the private school you're going to, how much scholarships you're going to get. And then that resulting figure, so tuition and housing minus any assistance, is going to say how much you owe out of pocket. That's really the key figure that you're looking at throughout this whole college process, this whole college search process, is how much do you owe out of pocket? Because that means how much money are you going to have to come up with on your own. So that's really, really important. And unfortunately, you know, Jennifer talked about this, and Matt Klein talked about this as well. You'd hope that it wouldn't be an issue, but it certainly is for everybody. You know, finances are a huge, huge part of the college search process. So we want to hopefully simplify that a little bit for you. So that's kind of the calculation that we use. All of the colleges or universities that your students are looking at, they're going to have their own scholarship programs, and there's a lot of really good ones out there. IVCCs, obviously, we're going to speak to that because we're familiar with it. IVCC's foundation does an amazing job of helping our students attend school. Several $100,000 per year they award in scholarships, and usually the vast majority of students who apply for scholarships at IVCC do obtain one, and the minimum amount is $500. That's a huge chunk of money. That can help out with books, that can help out with classes. You know, if you've got everything else covered and you get a scholarship, that can help out with gas money. It can, you know, help a student towards a new laptop or something along those lines. So our scholarship process, the way it works is the application is always open in December. So for example, for this fall, this upcoming fall, the scholarship opened December 6th, I think, of this past year. And then the deadline is the first week of February. So what students are required to do is fill out basically a scholarship packet. So they're given their demographic information, their name, their contact information, their address, that sort of stuff. And then we require them to write a scholarship essay. Every other college and university is going to require the same thing. That is going to scare students. I completely understand that nobody loves writing essays. However, we do a really, really good job, the folks in the foundation office. We spell out what we want to hear from students. So we want no more than 2 pages, but definitely more than 1 page, of a student telling us what are their educational and professional goals. So basically, why are you attending IVCC, and why did you pick your major? If you're not quite sure of what your major, that's okay. You can list that you're undecided and you're hoping to explore a little bit too. And then we want to hear, what are you going to do after IVCC? Whether that's go straight to work or whether that's transfer on to another university. We want to hear about that. We want to hear what your student's been doing, involvement in community service. We definitely want to hear if a student had a part-time job, or if they did volunteer in the community, or if they were involved in several athletics organizations, or if they were involved in band or anything like that. We want to know what your student's been up to make the most of their time in high school. And then we obviously want to hear too, what's the financial need? What are the special circumstances? We want to award the scholarships to the most deserving students. And so we want to hear, why are you seeking a scholarship? And if there is a special circumstance, which, my gosh, now more than ever, we've got situations where you know, it's paying for college is a huge, huge consideration. We want to know about that. So you definitely want to include in that essay what it is that makes your student special. The cool thing is, once they write that essay, they can reuse it for other scholarships that they may apply to. And we have scholarship writing workshops here on IVCC's campus where you can come in and we'll either help a student start from scratch their scholarship essay, or we'll review what they've already gotten just to make sure it's as good as it can possibly be. So always, always, always pursue community scholarships, university college scholarships that you're looking at. They are a huge, huge source of income. So, or for financial help with the college process. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Gracelyn, who's going to talk a little bit about, okay, once they've applied to the college and once they've gotten accepted, what happens now?
Okay. So next steps, we were just talking about everything you could do to prepare for college and to start your college career. Next steps after application, which, as mentioned earlier, is a free application for Illinois Valley Community College, would be to accept your admissions. And so some schools have a formal process for that, like you have to put in a deposit or sign something, a letter of intent, your statement of intent to register. And some of it too is just doing ongoing research on your different financial aid packages and what's available, what you've been offered at different schools. Maybe there's a school that you're reaching for, but you didn't get in, but there's another one that offered you a full ride. Plans can change so fast, so just keep that in mind. Also, always check your communications, the email address that you provided, or if they've provided you with their student ID address already, or excuse me, your student email address already, check that, as well as any communications that might come through the mail for things like housing or orientation. So, you know, I know we were talking about how IVCC, there's not room and board on campus, but if you are intending to go away to campus, away to college, then make sure you look at all the different deadlines for housing, submitting meal plans and that kind of stuff, selecting your roommate if you have the opportunity to do something like that. Also orientation, some campuses, once again, it might be an overnight thing, it might be a one-day thing, but typically it's a welcome to campus and some sort of academic registration, scheduling with your counselor. I know at IVCC we do it differently, and we, for incoming freshmen, we have our freshman counseling and registration appointments. And so students get to get their schedule set before then. And let me see, and after that, it's just a continuation of being an advocate for yourself. It's a lot different than high school. In high school, you're kind of told what you're supposed to do, or you're just given like a list of, you know, 2 or 3 options as to which math do you take, which English do you take. And it's a lot different in college because it's such a diverse field. The fields are so much more diverse. It's not just you're going to take chemistry. Do you want honors or regular? It's okay, you're going to take science. Do you want astronomy? Do you want weather? Do you want physics? So it's just a lot of kind of taking in that information and being an advocate for your own education. And is this the right path for me? Are these the right classes I should be taking? And just always keeping in touch with your counselor, whether it be at IVCC and intending to transfer onto a 4-year, making sure that all those classes are going to transfer seamlessly, and also being in touch with the sending or your receiving institution, and make sure that those classes get transferred seamlessly. In terms of other things, just books and supplies. Once you enroll in your classes, typically you'll be sent your registration statement at IVCC. Also, you'll get your book list, and you can communicate with the campus. A lot of them now are moving towards having like bookstores have all the books on campus or shipped to you, or you can look on Amazon or whatever. I know at IVCC we're fortunate to have all the course materials and books that are assigned are available through the bookstore. So you can actually just go to campus and pick those up when you get your schedule. Let's see. And like I mentioned earlier, you might need to sign up for orientation and then attend orientation, get everything set up before you head off. If you can squeeze in a summer school class, that's always beneficial. It'll keep you kind of going. There won't be a learning gap. And so you kind of just stay in that same in like the mindset of learning and continuing on. And it is a great transition for you to get prepared for a 4-year if you do have the opportunity to take some classes at IVCC before you head out. And once you're enrolled, once again, just keep being an advocate for yourself. Check out there, like if there are any classes that you can take over the summer at IVCC online or in person when you come home. Keep those in mind and keep in touch with a counselor at IVCC and keep working with your counselor at whatever institution you end up at. FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And that's something that it's, those rights are initially given to, or they're inherently given to students' parent or legal guardian. And these are rights to see stuff like students' grades. Like I know parents have been able to call into your schools and kind of ask those kinds of questions. However, once you transition onto an institution of higher education, you actually, those rights transfer to the student. And so by default, parents and guardians are no longer able to just get that information just by calling in or stopping in, unless a student signs a FERPA waiver, in which case that information can be shared with the people that they indicate. A lot of parents kind of get frustrated with that, but it's just a federal law. I know a lot of parents get past it by saying, well, you either sign this waiver or I won't pay for your tuition. So keep that in mind and talk about that with your student if that's something that you need to address.
All right, next up we have student resources. Thank you, Gracelyn and Quentin. So an important piece to not only visiting the college and university is really knowing, okay, how is my student going to get the support they need? Maybe you already know that, you know, math is something that they struggle with. So it's important to kind of locate those on campus. I know that at IVCC, some of the hot spots that a lot of our students either go for help or even work is our peer tutoring center. We also have a writing center. And then just some general things that should always be something to look out for is counseling, whether it's for academic counseling or personal counseling. It's important to see and know what and where those are at. I wanted to quickly show you too, this is kind of what we have to offer at IVCC, but you know, it stems from academic to student services. So you'll see we have disability services, we have the library, we have peer tutoring like I'd mentioned, but you're also going to see other programs that you might not know of is, you know, TRIO programs. So, you know, if your student's a first generation college student, that might be something to look into. There's typically an additional application for any kind of TRIO program. So for us, we call it Project Success. So be sure to see if your student is eligible for that. And some other things that you'll just find that are, you know, whether it's online, might be a podcast or a YouTube channel that they can get support on their own. So I wanted to just highlight that and to just keep an eye out when you're looking at those schools and seeing those resources online. With that, I'm going to go ahead and transition to Quentin.
Thanks, Azarette. So we hope that this has been helpful with a student, you know, as you guys work through the college search process. Every one of us has said this, but we are here to help, you know, and especially times like this during this COVID-19 pandemic, it creates a lot of uncertainty for students. And we're very, very mindful of that. And, you know, all of us here at IVCC, as well as the admissions officers at other universities and all the personnel really are just trying as hard as they possibly can to assist students throughout this time. So while we do have limited hours in our offices and we're currently closed to students, we are available. You can reach out to us by phone. You can call us anytime. You can, give us a call. You can send us an email. We've got Remind text groups that we'll post about on our Facebook page and Instagram page. We want to be here to help. What I want to add finally is I can speak from personal experience here at IVCC. What I am most proud of, I attended IVCC right out of high school and ended up transferring on and did a few different things. But I came back to IVCC, and the reason I am so proud to be back here, and the reason I would encourage any student to seriously consider IVCC, is that the people here truly care. I've had the privilege of working at several different colleges and universities, and there's good people everywhere, but I am blown away when I got back to IVCC just how much the faculty here, the staff here, everybody cares about student success. It really is a welcoming environment. Jennifer and Matt talked about that. You know, but from my perspective, in the short time I've been back here working, I see things every day where a counselor goes, you know, just will go to great lengths to help students. We've got a counselor here who was working with a student to pick classes because that's ostensibly why the student went to visit them. And in the course of the conversation, it came out the student was having difficulty figuring out how to pay for their medication. And so that counselor spent time working with the student to make that happen, to find alternative arrangements, because they knew that that was a barrier for the student to continue. We've got another admissions counselor who was working with a student a current student. And that's really one of the super exciting things about working here is when we work with students, when we admit them, we see them on campus. You know, we're a big enough campus that students can explore different things, but we're a small enough campus that we still get to see the students we interacted with. So one of our admissions counselors loaned a student her personal laptop to complete a paper because there's no other way the student was going to be able to do it. Another of our admissions counselors, I've seen countless times just sitting and listening to a student. You know, as parents, you all know that it's stressful to be a teenager. It's stressful to be a high school student. It's stressful to be a college student. And so I've seen, you know, this particular person just sit and listen as a student maybe vents about what's going on in their personal life. And that's the most important thing. I'm going to get on my soapbox here, but that's the most important thing we can do anytime, but particularly now, is just be kind to others and be there for them and help. And I know regardless of you know, when this ends, IVCC folks will be here to help with that. And we're here to see the students succeed no matter what. So that's what I'm most proud of. And that's why I hope you guys will consider IVCC when your student is searching for colleges. So we're going to take some questions right now. And I know one of the questions that came in, Renee, I'm actually going to turn it over to you. So obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic that's going on, that's kind of thrown a wrench into the normal college search process. So one of the questions we've been asked time and time again is, how do I go about, you know, meeting with a counselor? Because students, whether they're a student coming back to school after a couple of years, whether they're a high school senior now that had a counseling appointment scheduled, this has kind of upended all that. So Renee, what would you have to say as far as what students can do now to make that happen, to make that counseling appointment happen? So let's see. We're having a bit of a technical difficulty at the moment, so bear with us. One of the things I'll say before Renee gets on is that like I said, our counselors, while we can't meet with students in person anymore, they have made as many adjustments as they possibly can to still try to meet with that student either over the phone or through a video conferencing software. So while again, they can't meet with that student in person, our counselors are still available to meet with those students. We're going to hold on just for 1 second while we get Renee back up and running, but we'll put that one on hold for a second. You know, one of the questions we often get to is the timelines. What does that college search timeline look like? And there's a lot of good information out there that says that earlier you start having those conversations with your student, the better. So if your student's a freshman in high school, it is kind of, you know, this sounds so simple, but even just having a conversation with your student without putting too much pressure on them, even if you can just say, okay, what are you thinking about? You know, what's a possible major? So having those conversations early on is really important. When you should really start visiting campuses is, you know, in that junior or senior year. Definitely start that college search process there. And really, it does involve just going to college fairs. Here at IVCC, we host College Night, where we have over 50 colleges and universities come on campus. Excuse me, and you and your student can come and speak to those representatives. It also really involves talking with your high school counselor, because they're experts as well. They can help you out. But real quick, I'm going to turn it over to Renee, who can talk about those counseling appointments.
Okay, so the question was basically, how do you still reach us? And yes, we are still here. We're just working from all different places, from all around the upper Midwest at this point. So if you're trying to reach someone to make a counseling appointment and you have a high school senior at home, we do have a webpage that addresses freshman counseling and registration. We are in the midst right now of changing all of those appointments over to either Zoom and virtual appointments like you're viewing today, or if you don't have the capability to do Zoom and something, you know, you have poor internet access at home, we can do phone appointments as well. We're just asking students to help us out a little bit and grab some screenshots maybe of those PSAT or SAT scores that they can share with us or email to us if we're on a phone appointment. We're asking them to be able to log into their high school portal so we can see maybe an unofficial transcript or their overall GPA. We're just doing things a little differently right now, but we'll make it work for you. So whatever your needs are, you can reach out to counseling, and I think that number was on there earlier, but it's 224-0360, and one of our amazing staff will get you hooked up with a counselor. Yep, there we go. And we get messages hourly and updates all the time. Hey, can you contact this person? If it's just an appointment you need, they'll put you on our schedule. If you are an incoming freshman, we do ask that you make that freshman counseling appointment, because you do get a little bit more information as that high school senior, and we ask a little bit more of you than a traditional student coming back. So if you are a traditional student, or maybe a parent, or a parent that has an older child that wants to come back to college or come to college for the first time, just give us a shout out and we'll be happy to accommodate you.
Thanks, Renee. I really appreciate you doing that. So we talked a little, another question was about the scholarships, and we talked about those scholarships. Again, the deadline is something that you have to be aware of. So for the following academic year, you're actually going to apply starting in December. So again, scholarships that would apply to this coming fall, that application period was December through February. So if you missed that opportunity, there's always next year. So you can look for that scholarship application to be available this coming December. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's really, really important for you to explore all your scholarship opportunities. At this point, Renee, is there anything else that you'd just like to add overall?
Just that we're all getting through this together right now. And if you don't reach out, we can't connect back with you. So, you know, any questions, even if you've got a question about Northern or U of I or whatever, we've got different counselors that specialize in the different schools. So we can help, you know, try to get you that information or navigate with you. So, you know, if you don't ask us those questions, and no question is too silly, too small, we've heard it all. So that should be my mantra. Yeah. Too silly, too small, we've heard it all. Don't you think?
I like it. We'll get bumper stickers made.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, thanks you guys.
Thank you, Renee. So Azarette, Graceland, thank you guys so much for making this happen today. And to anybody who's watching this, we're all in this together, and just be kind. Thanks.